everyone, how's it going? So today you're going to be looking at Edward Weston, which you would have looked through the PowerPoint slides that I've shared with you guys earlier on today. From looking at the PowerPoint slides, you would have learned about his style of work and what he's known for. Essentially, he's known for obviously his still life photography work, and landscape and portraits and so forth. When you look at his still life in particular, you can see that he isolates the background to be really dark so that the object is the main focal point. But also the object that he takes picture of sometimes kind of resemble of sculptures, human body, maybe because the way he edits them, from using lighting, the exposure levels, maybe just by choosing the right kind of objects as well. But not so much about that, he's also thinking about the angle and the composition. So sometimes maybe he's putting his camera higher up or lower down or to a side, paneling to the side kind of angles so that it creates that look that might resemble to a human body, or something that it might remind you of nature and life itself. And you can also see that it's not just central composition that he might take where that background's isolated. He also looks at other things by looking at leading lines of the textures, fruits and vegetables that he can see when you cut it open in half and so forth. And it looks really interesting because from just doing that, it creates this unusual abstract kind of look. So what you're going to be going to do today is take pictures in the style of Edward Weston's work, okay? So as you all know, we don't have our cameras, so what we're going to do is use our phone. So here I've got my phone and I'm going to click on the camera app. Now there are a couple of things you need to set up for your shoot. You need a really dark cloth like this, okay? I already happen to have a photography backdrop material, but when I started out, I mainly used fitted bed sheets or duvet covers, jumpers, curtains, and so forth to use as my backdrop. So you can use anything that you have at home that resembles of a really dark material look. So it could be almost black is preferred, but if you've got a really dark navy one, that's totally fine as well, because we will edit this to black and white anyways. So with that in mind, just make sure that it's not white, because it will be harder for you to edit on Snapseed to have a dark background rather than a light background, because we're trying to achieve a really dark background. So if you remember just from looking at his work, things like this, we want to create a really dark background, okay? Good, so once you've got that, then you're going to need a couple of things. So you're going to drape this over your chair, which I've done, and you're going to sit by your window like so, and you're going to use your curtains as a way to create shadows and light. So right now I am creating light by opening my curtains and a darker lighting settings by closing my curtains, okay? So that's what I'm going to use as my setup. The second thing is you'll need some fruit and vegetables. So I've got bananas. You can see my bananas almost pretty much gone. So I'll definitely need to buy some new ones today. And I've got a big, huge ginger, which is so hard to find these days. So I thought I'd get a big one. And with the ginger, I don't know, something about it reminds me of coral, sea life, and just looking at Edward Weston, he's got lots of shells kind of photographs, so I thought maybe ginger would be a good one to play with. But also if you look at these lines from the ginger root, that would be really interesting to create from shadows and lighting and so forth, and just looking at these raw textures would be really fun to take pictures of. So that. Bananas, I think it would be fun to play with because you've got all these different markings, you've got these lines, and it's just kind of way of showing, I don't know, something about still life can be a symbolism of life, when something starts to, I don't know, rot away, shall we say. So, and then we've got mushrooms. With the mushrooms, as you can see, these textures are just so beautiful. So that's one of the reasons why I definitely want to take some pictures of mushrooms. And I probably would want to cut this in half so you got a really nice, interesting outcome. But I think I might just leave it as this because I really like the organic shape around the mushrooms like so. So if you've got a couple of mushrooms or if you've got a whole box, that's totally fine. So those are the kind of things that I want you to take pictures of. It needs to be of fruit and vegetables that has interesting textures and lines that you can definitely create really interesting photography work. Okay, so I'm just going to put these guys to the side, and like I said, you're going to use this as your backdrop. So I'm just going to clean up the surface. Now the next part is you can pause this video to grab your things whilst I clear this up. And right, so now my chair is all cleared up. And I haven't had time to iron this, but that's fine. I do want to create some interesting shadows from this anyway, so you never know, it might be useful. So I'm going to bring my banana to the front, and I want to make sure that it's nice and central. Now, how do you tell if it's central composition? What I do is always look at the distance from this side to my object and the distance from this side of my object to the frame. And if it's quite similar in terms of distance, that means, okay, this side is central. Now I need to look at the top. Is this distance the same to the bottom? And then that way you can create a really nice central composition. And from then, I just take pictures of it. And as I'm taking pictures, I want to use my curtains to create more depth of a backdrop. And as you can see, I was not in central composition as I was taking them. So always review your pictures to make sure that it's nice and central. So the first one did the best, okay? And as you're doing this, don't just stay central, because we also saw some of his photographs that it was quite close up to the edges. So I might just try to move my camera angle from the low angle view and make sure it's nice and central, leading lines towards the top of the photo, like so. Okay, and again, use your curtains as your backdrop and take more interesting shots, like central. You could even create creases around here from your fabric even. Just be experimental and see where that might take you, and move your camera around. Make sure you don't take any edges of the background. Sorry, my house is a little bit messy today, but that will do. And then you take pictures from there. You can even do a landscape photograph. So you just turn your photo to the side and take picture from there. And it might help to zoom in as well, maybe taking pictures from the edges. And again, that's pretty much all you really need to do when you're taking pictures of your fruit and veg. So I'm going to put this to the side, and then I'm going to bring my other object in, and this time I'm going to use the ginger root. Now with the ginger root, again, I'm going to use my curtains to create a little bit more contrast and shadows, and just make sure it's nice and central, like so. And you can even zoom in and open your curtains up if you like to create more stronger lighting, and maybe turn your phone to the side to create landscape shots like this. And you might want to zoom in a little bit from this angle. Feel the frame shots are really cool sometimes, so maybe give that a go. Okay, now that I've got that, now I'm going to do my mushrooms. So I'm going to take pictures of my mushrooms. You can do one mushroom at a time, like so, and move your camera around so you've got a really nice shot. And if you have an iPhone and if you see this square button, what you could do is create the exposure level by bringing it up and down by pressing your thumb all the way down, and you can actually create darker shadows like this. or you can move your exposure level higher by holding it down on the square, and it's basically focusing on the area you want it to mainly focus on. So I'm just going to create those darker shadows again. Make sure it's nice and central composition. And you can even do a landscape shot like this. And if it's too blurry, it means your camera might be too close to your object. So sometimes you just need to move back a little, and you can just crop it afterwards. So again, you want to play with the exposure level if you can. Otherwise, you don't need to. And here we go. And then a couple of shadows. Fill the frame shots and so forth. If you want to be even more experimental, you can bring everything in together and lay your fruit and veg in a certain way that might show an interesting composition. And I might just layer this up like this. And again, nice and central. Try to not capture the background and keep it quite close up like this. And just give it a quick clean up on your cloth. You don't want these dusts to show up in your overall pictures like this. And then do maybe a landscape shot like this. And a higher one like this. So I'm moving my camera into different angles, creating different shadows. And again, always move your curtains around to create different shadows as well. And that's really it, guys. So that's how you take pictures of your still life work, okay? So essentially, you will have at least 15 different pictures of you experimenting with your mushrooms or ginger or whatever fruit and vegetables you decide to take. Remember, it needs to show some kind of texture, leading lines, in order for it to look quite similar to the artist's style of work. Okay, so the next part of the video, I'm going to show you how to edit on Snapseed. So I'll catch up with you guys then. See ya!